All right, everyone, we are going to resume.
Order in the class. Need a bell.
Check and see, the naughty ones who aren't talking. So, final little part before lunch. Come on, naughty girls. Fingers on lips. So, the final part before lunch, before we take our break at the halfway point of the day. And like I said before, I think unintentionally, I set the theme of this event perfectly. So yesterday I spent a bit of time kind of just going through what I was going to talk about and, doing the whole rehearsal thing. And I thought, how does this link into other people's talks and sort of some of the stuff we've been doing one-to-one together as well. So like I said before, we've got Anne doing the creativity, how to find your creativity, because I bang on about this all the time. Emotional eaters are creative people who are not being creative enough. Not just emotional eaters, people who are struggling with their mental health are people who are not being creative enough. So we kind of went through that today, and then Joseph brilliantly done his in-person talk of the values training into the other month to help you understand what your highest values are. And I know some of us has done that session together one-to-one. If you want a little bit more help with that, your next Zoom call with me will really help you put that into perspective. But now you're probably sitting there going, right, I kind of get an idea of how to be creative. I know how I should do this or how I should do that, or maybe what I could be doing more of. Right, I know my values, I know what I feel in alignment with, I know how I want to live my life on my terms. But now you will be sitting here, whether it's conscious or unconscious, with a bunch of beliefs that are going to stop you from doing it. Basically fears, yeah? So this is my fear pyramid training. Who was here in 2022? Who was on the program in 2022? I think there might have only been 4 or 5 people maybe. Do you remember a training called the fear pyramid? Yeah. So I've recently redone my fear pyramid, and I'm going to be super vulnerable and honest with you today and show you exactly what my deepest, darkest fears are. And if you could do the same today, you don't have to share it, but the combination of how can I be creative, how can I live in alignment with my highest values, and how can I overcome my fears, in my opinion, that's a transformational process, those things together. So I'm going to talk about my own personal framework for how I deal with my fears. So someone actually changed the way that I see fear. Someone who I'm massively inspired by, someone who I've went into the deep end on in terms of his training, a guru of mine, if you will. And I was actually on a podcast, it's not been released yet, called the Brilliant Humans podcast. I don't know if anyone's heard of it, where the whole idea of the podcast is to not come on and talk about yourself. Is to come on and talk about someone who's inspired you. And I chose my brilliant human to be this gentleman here, Jeff Thompson. Who's heard of Jeff Thompson? Yeah. He's one of the most underrated guys in the, I guess, personal development industry, if you want to call it that. He doesn't seek the limelight. He's kind of under the radar a little bit. But as you can see there, he's a BAFTA winner. He's wrote, I believe, about 53 books, and some of his podcasts that he's done just with guests on YouTube have went viral because he's got one of the most inspiring stories ever. Now, I don't have the time today to go deeply into his very detailed backstory, but I will tell you one of the main frameworks that I got from studying Jeff Thompson. And I do suggest in your own time, if you want someone to listen to or some content to devour on your walks, or if you get sick of me talking and you want someone different, check out Jeff Thompson, because honestly he's the guy in my opinion. If you were to ask me, Sam, who's the person who inspires you the most, who have you learnt the most from, who's had the biggest impact on your life, this guy here. So what I learnt about fear came directly from Jeff Thompson's book called The Warrior, and I've heard him talk about this on podcasts as well. So he talked about a story where he went through some challenges in his childhood. To make a very long, detailed story short, he went through some sexual abuse at the age of about 11 at the hands of a martial arts instructor who he was inspired by, who he looked up to, a mentor of his who obviously betrayed that trust. And that had, as you can imagine, many impacts on his psychology over the years. And he was someone who lived with depression his whole life, and it impacted every part of his life, his relationships, his mental health. but also how he saw fear. And he said he got so sick of feeling depressed one day, so sick and tired and feeling sick and tired, that he had this divine intervention where he just sat down and he drew a fear pyramid. And he basically wrote down all of his deepest, darkest fears and put them in a pyramid, very much like we've done with the values already today. And one of his greatest fears was violent confrontation. He was a black belt at the time in martial arts. He was a well-renowned martial arts instructor. But his greatest fear was violent confrontation. And he realized that in order to actually overcome that fear, he had to get to the essence of it. So he decided to become a nightclub doorman. Not because he was to prove he was fearless, but to actually come up against fear. Because when you go through it, when you feel it, when you begin to face it, you realize it's not as big and scary as you thought. So his concept on the fear pyramid totally changed my life. And one thing that I still talk about with you guys coaching, or even in my own life, fear is not necessarily real. Fear is just a feeling that you are perceiving about the thing that you're avoiding. And the only way through fear is to expose yourself to it. The only proven practice, shall we say, in a clinical setting in psychotherapy is exposure therapy. If you're terrified of something and you avoid it, it's a natural thing to do, but you're essentially creating deeper and more ingrained neural connections to say that's the big scary thing I need to avoid. The only way to desensitize yourself to that is to slowly but surely expose yourself to the thing that you've been avoiding. And over time, your neural connections reform to where you're like, actually, that's not as bad as I thought. So the only way to overcome fear is to basically, in a nutshell, do it anyway despite feeling afraid. However, there is a bit of a process to doing that. That's why the fear pyramid, which we'll make today, which I'll show you mine today, you don't go to the deepest, darkest fear straight away, right? You go to the easiest one first, the low-hanging fruit. And then you go up the pyramid. So here's an example of the fear pyramid. We don't have to do this right now, but there is how you set it out. So you write down every fear, okay, that's the starting point. That could be, I don't know, fear of spiders. It could be something like that. It could be something very surface level, something that makes you feel mildly uncomfortable, but it's not your deepest, darkest one. You get all of the small ones out first, and then you just keep going up that list until you start getting to the nitty-gritty ones, to the ones where actually you might not even be conscious of it. You might not even know that that's your fear. It might be so scary that you've put it to the unconscious parts of your mind, in that box in the corner of your mind that you're too afraid to open up. That's got so dusty and so hidden over the years, you forgot it even exists. So you stay present with this list until it starts really impacting your nervous system. There will be a fear right now that you can just think about and you'll get this visceral response. You'll get that drop in your tummy. That means you're on the right track. And if you're not willing to go there in your own body, you're not actually ever going to make the transformational process that you want, because your potential is hidden inside the fears that you're currently avoiding. Believe me, I've tried to dance around this in my own life. Oh, I'll just forget about those things there and I'll just work on these things. It only gets you so far. So we'll come back to that later. So again, a little bit of a deep dive on fear. You've heard me say this before. I want you to say the quote out. 3, 2, 1. Data over drama. There you go. Thanks. Yeah. So fear is the drama part of it, okay? Fear is real. It's real in terms of a felt feeling. But we know we can be afraid of something that it's basically an assumption. It's more of a thought spiral where we go down the rabbit hole. Fear is a negative what-if statement. Now, it doesn't necessarily matter if there's any validity to that, or if there's a fact. Fear is often just a what-if statement that's manifesting as a felt, lived experience in the body that, without emotional inquiry, we just assume is real. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if this worst-case scenario that might happen comes true? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I used to suffer with panic attacks because this is exactly what I was doing. I remember lying in bed one night. I had a day, maybe 10 years ago, a day where nothing bad had happened, but I just couldn't get to sleep, and I just tossed and turned for an hour. And that slight, I can't really get to sleep, and, I'm a little bit frustrated with that. Ended up becoming a full-blown panic attack 4 hours later because I sat there and just stewed on all of the what-if statements in my head when I couldn't sleep. To where I'd literally, my nervous system responds to those what-if statements as, oh my God, this must be true. Then the heart palpitation starts and the nervous system dumps a bunch of adrenaline and cortisol. So fear takes over the body. It starts off with a what-if statement. Just realised there's a laser on here. There you go. A what-if statement. So that's the spark, right? That's the spark, okay? What if this happens? Oh, and then you dwell on it, and then you fester on it, and then you add intensity to it, and you keep going, and you keep going, and then you're adding friction together. You create more sparks. Then you start to feel overwhelmed. Everyone can just have a thought now where you're like, oh God. And if you sat with it for 5 minutes, you can literally start to feel overwhelmed. Like your body's now processing that energy. It might not be a full-blown panic attack, but it's a sense of restlessness, nervousness. And the longer we spend ruminating on that, that's where we'll go down what I call the rabbit hole. We know that terminology, right? All of us can go down the rabbit hole in our mind and convince ourselves of something that isn't necessarily true. It's a what if or it's a might be, but just believe it as gospel and be like, oh my God, that's it. That's what limiting beliefs are doing to your mind, to our mind, to my mind right now. And it's often unconscious. We don't even know we are doing it. That's when we get the paralysis, right? That can be literally burnout, physical burnout, not even wanting to get out of bed, complete dissociation from your body, depression, anxiety. In my opinion, though, they're all just all consequences of this. Whether it's conscious or unconscious, but going down the rabbit hole of our fears, believing them to be true, dwelling and ruminating on them to the point when it actually impacts our physiological state. That's what I think depression and anxiety is. I think it's a physical symptom of something spiritual, something deeper, something buried in our unconscious mind, something metaphysical. So fear always starts with what if. What are some of our common what if statements? We all do this, right? What if I fail? Who's had that one before? Where you're like, right, I really want to change. I want to lose weight. Let's use that as an example. But I've failed every diet I've tried. Oh, what if I fail again? I can't face it. Right? I'm not going to message Sam and get started. You know what I mean? Right, okay, we've all had that one. What if they judge me? I really want to do that thing. Maybe it was something Anne said today or something Joseph said today where you're like, you know what? I would love to do more of that. And then for a split second, you were like, yeah, let's do it. And then immediately that devil on the shoulder went, what if people judge you for it? And you went, oh, I don't know about that then. Am I right? Did that happen today? Yeah? Is that happening right now? Me too. Yeah, what if they judge me? What if I look stupid? It's another one as well. What if I look stupid? What if I'm not good enough? We all get that one. Because I said before about the fear of failure is definitely not very nice. But an even deeper fear is, what if I do it anyway, but it's still not good enough? What if I actually succeed, but it's still not enough? That's even scarier. That's even darker than the fear of failure. What if it hurts? What if I can't do it? What if people judge me? What if I look stupid? What if I fail? What if I succeed, but I still feel terrible, right? I'm just not going to do it. All of these things put you in paralysis. And the more you do that, and we've got Kath talking a little bit about brain chemistry and neuroscience later on, you're actually ingraining those neural connections deeper and deeper and deeper. Remember my training on the brain, the 4 steps to self-mastery? I used the tracks in the snow analogy. If you walk down the same tracks in the snow, eventually they'll become very ingrained. You'll be able to see them. That works both positively and negatively, by the way. The more you face your fear, the deeper those tracks of I have the ability to face them no matter what get deeper. The more you avoid them, the more I can't do this tracks in the snow are made. But the key statement is, are you believing one of those what if statements to be true without any emotional inquiry at all, without any evidence? I was talking to Jess before about a book that I got that I recommended her, rather, The 4 Agreements. Who's listened to The 4 Agreements before? I read The 4 Agreements. World-class book. Very simple, but it's very powerful. One of the agreements is never make assumptions. Just single sentence, never make assumptions. Most of us are making assumptions dozens, if not hundreds of times a day. Oh, I can't do that, I'll fail. How the fuck do you know? Have you tried? Oh, I can't do that, people will judge me. All right, tell me about when you first found this crystal ball that you've got. You've been keeping that a secret forever. I didn't know you were clairvoyant. Most of us are making assumptions all the time, and then we're misinterpreting them as facts. And then our body goes, well, that must be true, so I'm going to believe it. Remember, your nervous system, it's a million-year-old tool that's been evolved to keep you away from danger, to stop you, the skeleton with a bag of meat around it with chemicals flying around, from dying. Right? That's its only job. So it kind of can't take a risk. It can't get a signal from the brain that says this is dangerous. It can't go, I think you're telling porky pies. It can't do that. It's got to go, right, I'm going to have to believe it. So that's why the nervous system responds to that. But the opposite is also true. The nervous system will respond to you challenging those what-if statements and labeling them as this is an assumption, not a fact. So what most people do with fear, like we've said before, they overthink the negative statement. This causes you to create a self-fulfilling prophecy. If someone goes, I'm really desperate to lose weight and get in shape. I'm really desperate to change my body. I'm desperate to end binge eating. I'm desperate to do this thing that I've been avoiding. But I failed so many times before. There's no point in even trying. So then they conform to that. Their behaviors conform to that belief, which means they can't get the results that they want. And then they go, see, I knew I couldn't do it. It's like, is that really true? Or did just your behavior conform to what you told what you said your fear was, and then you responded to it? It's like, well, that's what I'm scared of, so I'm not going to do it. And then, see, I knew I wouldn't get the result. It's like, but you haven't actually tried. You've just literally allowed your fears to spiral until your behavior is conformed. Now, at this point, you're going to start feeling a little bit depressed, a little bit anxious, a little bit overwhelmed. Yeah. So what do? That's when you sedate. That's when you binge drink, you drink, you escape, you numb, you scroll, whatever your form of, I guess, emotional procrastination is, whatever form of emotional avoidance. There's many vices, we all know them. That's when that point will happen, when we're just believing a negative statement in our head to be true. And again, I mentioned before, the fear of failing leads to avoidance. Avoidance leads to repeatedly avoiding things, which leads to a brain that doesn't believe it can ever change. It leads to the very identity that you don't want to have. Talk about a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're so desperate for your life to change and desperate to escape your circumstances, but you don't do the things to get you out of that frame of mind, and then you're complaining about where you're at. But you created that life. We all created that life through the things that we avoided. I've often used this before, this terminology, and I learned this from Jeff Thompson. The way he described it as a metaphysical parasite. Eckhart Tolle has also talked about emotions as semi-autonomous beings that almost have a life of their own, that are projected into you or placed into you, or you download from the realm of consciousness. It's a very deep way of thinking about it, but I like the idea of a parasite. So the way Jeff Thompson described his parasite is this trauma happened to him at 11-year-olds at the hand of this martial arts instructor who abused him. Something was placed in him, a parasite, a metaphysical parasite that had a mind of its own, that then fed off him for years. A parasite doesn't announce itself. If you've ever got dogs before, if you've had a dog before, and sometimes you find a tick, right, and you're like, oh, how long has that been there? Could have been there for weeks, you just don't know it until it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It feeds off them in the silence, yeah? So a parasite doesn't announce itself. It attaches silently and feeds off you slowly. You don't often see it until it's, I don't want to say too late, until it's buried very deep, until it's took over your identity. It's took over your thought process. It's took over who you perceive yourself or how you perceive yourself. The job of a parasite is to alter the behavior as host without the host realizing. You ever seen the David Attenborough documentary where it talks about the mushroom? It's called cordyceps, I think. Basically, it's a type of mushroom, parasitic mushrooms, that the spores get on ants, right? And it basically goes into the ant's brain, and takes over the brain of the ant. It then climbs up the tree and then dies on the end of a tree, and then the fungus grows out of its head, and then the spores are released for it to do it again. This is a real thing. Mother Nature's invented that. Some sort of zombie mushroom, right? Swear to God, I think it's a cordyceps mushroom. That's a real thing. David Attenborough done a segment on it before. And I remember watching it going, oh my God. Like, so we talk about like good and evil in the world and all this and all. Mother Nature just shows you it, right? That is literally a real thing, right? That's what fear does. It might not manifest physically as that, but it will take over our brain and it will alter the direction of our life, the way we perceive ourselves, the things that we do, the things that we avoid. And therefore, as a result of that, the consequences, the results that we get in our life will be from that parasite that we didn't even know existed. What feeds that parasite is avoidance. It doesn't have a food source. We are the food source. It feeds off our avoidance. It gets fat of our avoidance. This could be opportunities that you avoid. Oh, you know what? I think I could really go for that job, but someone else will get it. I'm not going to do it. They're better than me. Oh, I've got an idea for a book that I'm going to write. Oh, people won't buy it. I'm not going to do it. Oh, I've got this idea for a business or, you know, whatever. Could just be a personal goal. Opportunities avoided, relationships avoided, new experiences avoided. Oh, I'm not going to book that trip, even though it's been on my bucket list forever. You didn't avoid those things because they were dangerous, necessarily. You avoided them because this parasite of fear told you that you're somehow not good enough. One of those what-if statements, the devil on the shoulder, I like to use, we've all seen them cartoons before, the angel and the devil on the shoulder, yeah? Started piping up again. What if you fail? What if you look stupid? What if you can't do it? What if you do it anyway and you're still not happy? Without even realizing, so many of us have lived life like that for decades. This parasite's been feeding off you for decades, still there, right now. So the parasite thrives on one thing, uncertainty. The parasite generates the question, what if I fail? This then creates uncertainty. Don't know if it's going to work out. Don't know if it's going to be okay. Don't know if it's going to be safe. Don't know if I can do this. Don't know if people will like it or not. Or I can't do it. It thrives off certainty and avoidance. This loop then creates the feedback loop that neural connections literally go stronger and stronger and stronger. The more you avoid, the more you walk down those tracks, the bigger and stronger it gets, the fatter that parasite gets. If left unchecked, it will completely rewire your operating system, aka how you perceive the world, how you regulate your emotions, how your nervous system responds to your thoughts. So fear is, remember the training, the energy and motion training, remember that? Fear, let's draw it on here actually. Let's draw it on here. So we've got the 4 quadrants, right? We've got high energy, we've got low energy, we've got positive, we've got negative, right? Fear is up here. It's a very high energy, but negative perception emotion. High energy, negative emotions are very dysregulating to the body. You'll get symptoms when you're in that frame of mind, yeah? There'll be heart palpitations, there'll be racing thoughts. The chemicals around that emotion is literally your adrenaline dumping, what's the scientific word for adrenaline? I can never remember it. Begins with an N, neuroepinephrine or something like that. Anyways, adrenaline. Cortisol, adrenaline, cocktail of chemicals that were designed over millions of years to stop us, the original monkeys, from going too close to the saber-toothed tigers. That's why it was designed. Oh, you can't do that. Predators will eat you. Right, better stay away from it. Those chemicals have been designed from that. But we don't have those level of threats these days, but we do have our own negative thoughts, and my body's still on that operating system. We're almost a victim of our own evolution, to be honest. We're so big and clever, and we've got these really advanced brains. Look at the amazing things we've created all around us, societies, technologies, but we're still living by this million-year-old operating system. You know, so we've got to be aware of that. So fear is the thing that you're perceiving to be the thing to avoid, but the felt emotion is very high energy negative because it's a result of those chemicals being released. Yeah? So it's a very high energy negative emotion. It's a very dysregulating emotion. It doesn't feel comfortable. And again, back to that point, we've adapted and learned from that uncomfortable feeling to get us to avoid danger. You go look over a cliff, you'll get that drop in the stomach. Ooh, that's to get, it's to get you away from danger. You know what I mean? So it's high energy. That's supposed to say negative emotion. It's just the wrong word. It's a high energy emotion, but it's a negative perception. You're perceiving it to be negative, yeah? Fear is basically letting you know there is a possible danger. So this is not me saying every fear you have is completely invalid. It's saying it's possible, likely, may happen, but we confuse it as must happen. We confuse danger and fear as the same thing. We want to respond to danger, but we want to definitely stand and look at fear and go, is this really true? Am I making an assumption right now? Am I allowing the chemical cocktail in my body to convince me that this is a fact and it's not just a feeling, a worry, a what if? That's the distinction we've got to make. So danger is real. Fear is not. It's possible. It's a perception. It's a possible outcome, but it's not real. It's not, there's a truck coming towards me, I better get out the way. That's real. But fear of what if I fail, very uncomfortable, but in that moment it's not even real because you're thinking about a possible future that hasn't even happened yet. The only thing that real is the present moment. An amazing Byron Katie quote. Other than what you are thinking and believing, are you okay? Yeah, you're sitting in this room right now, you're in South Shields, you're with a bunch of other people in the community. There's no saber-tooth tigers around, is there? Let's have a look. None there. No one coming in to get you. There's no one judging you. There's no one telling me we're stupid. That's all in my mind. Again, I'm not invalidating it. We all have those thoughts. But just stop for a second and ground yourself in the present. Is that real? It's not. So it's perception. Fear is perception. Danger is real. Every fear you have, I learned this from Dr. John DeMartini, can actually be fit into some categories. So maybe you wrote down some things you've avoided or feared, right? Maybe try and put them in a category. Fear of loss. So we fear, this is a natural fear, by the way. It's natural to fear these things. So the fear of loss. This could be losing something that you currently have that you don't want to lose. So you'll do everything to avoid that from happening, again, unconsciously. So this could be the loss of a job, loss of a relationship, loss of your money, your reputation, the love of someone you care about, a resource that you've got, an item that you've got, something that you currently have, you fear losing it. The terror of having something precious and watching it slip away. Yeah? Think of Gollum in Lord of the Rings. Yeah? So the fear of loss, totally normal. We've evolved to fear that because, again, as ancient humans, if we lost the things that we had as resources, wow, we might die, mightn't we? So it's normal to fear loss. Yeah. The second category of fears is the fear of gain, gaining something. That's the failure part. I don't want to gain this feeling. I want to avoid this feeling as much as I can. I don't want to gain failure. I don't want to gain humiliation. I don't want to change that I didn't ask for. Again, how many times have I done one-to-one sessions with you guys and went, okay, like, there's big things happened that you couldn't see coming. What we're going to do about it? Big fear of change. We've all got that big fear of change. The fear of something new, something uncertain. It's the terror of stepping into the unknown. Even if we currently don't like our reality right now, many of us will choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar possible heaven. Yeah, better the devil you know, I think is the quote, right? But that's, again, what keeps us stuck. It creates those self-fulfilling prophecies. I'm like, I'm not happy, but I'm terrified of changing, so I'm just going to stay over here. But I'm not happy. Can we take a step back for a second and realize when we do that, and I do it as well, that doesn't make logical sense, does it? Yet that's how we are often operating. So spend not a bit of time, but just to jot some things down. What are your fears? We'll get to the pyramid later. Categorize them. Fear of loss, fear of gain. It helps you start to unravel the perception rather than just being this big scary thing that's locked in that box. So invite them in for a cup of tea. Say, right, come on, tell us what you need to say. I'm still frightened of you. I'm still going to keep my distance, but what is it that you're here to show me? Just starting to process them. It helps by understanding, well, is this a fear of a loss or a fear of a gain? Carl Jung called this the shadow. And I had a bunch of photos from years ago that I did a photo shoot, right? That all come in handy for this training. I didn't even know, but they have. So you've heard me talk about this before, facing the shadow. These are the disowned parts of yourself, the feelings that you taught yourself were unacceptable, the emotions that you learned to suppress through childhood, through programming, through experiences, through fears that actually did come true in the past, that your brains went, nope, I'm not taking that risk again. But like mold, or like some of those mushrooms I talked about before, they grow and fester in the dark and damp, and the thing when there's no light there, when we're not aware of it, when we don't get oxygen to it, when we don't let it breathe, it gets bigger. So the shadow grows the more you avoid it. And again, that self-fulfilling prophecy of all these things you want to suppress that you don't want to be true has more likelihood of coming true. That's the paradox of avoidance. The things that you avoid about the world, about yourself, about your own thoughts, have more likelihood of coming true. That's the paradox that Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist of the 20th century, was trying to teach us about the shadow. Frankenstein. Bet you never thought I was going to share that one today. So everyone's heard of Frankenstein. Mary Shelley, I believe, wrote it in a weekend, stuck in, I believe the story was she was stuck in like a thunderstorm for like 3 days in this old country house in England somewhere. And the people that she was with, they said, I don't know, fun game we can do where we can't leave the house in this storm. Bear in mind it's the 1800s. Let's all write a little story and we'll see who's got the best story. Apparently that's how Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein. The whole concept behind Frankenstein, I love going into the psychology and the symbolism behind literature. I always did, even at school. That was one of the things I did love at school. I got an A in English literature. Frankenstein's not about the monster. It's about the creator, us, abandoning what he made. So he became the monster because Dr. Frankenstein didn't love him, didn't accept him. So the monster, and we all confuse Frankenstein thinking that's the monster, but it was actually Dr. Frankenstein and the monster, okay? So the monster was an abomination, so to speak, but really it was just the suppressed and abandoned parts of the creator that he didn't want to deal with. That was his work. He made that monster. But when that monster revealed itself to be less than desirable, have those less than desirable traits, oh my God, get rid of him, abandon him. And then the whole story is about Frankenstein rebelling against that, right? Or the monster rebelling against Frankenstein. That was symbolic for the shadow. That's the whole point of it. We create the monster the more we avoid ourselves. The very thing that we are frightened of has more likelihood of coming true the more we don't deal with it. Some of the greatest people alive had fear. I want to move into the last part of normalizing fear. So everything I've said today is about getting you to face your fears. But let's humanize ourselves for a second. Totally normal to have fear. Some of the greatest people alive throughout history had fear. So again, I'm not necessarily saying I'm religious. I just really love the psychology behind the stories. Some great stories in ancient religions that we can all learn from. So the story of Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane, that's basically the night before he's arrested. And he has this moment with God. If you've seen the film The Passion of Christ, you'll notice this. He's like, why do I have to go through this? I don't want to deal with this. He knows that he has to be put to death on the cross the next day. And he says something that's powerful. He says, your will, not mine. That was him recognizing in the moment, I'm human. It's normal to have this fear, but this is your will. This is what you want from me. I've got to go through it. It's a brilliant example of facing fears despite feeling scared. Fear is normal. Thinking it shouldn't be normal, that's a problem. Again, Muhammad, the story of Muhammad. He was so afraid I think it was a battle or a war he had to go through to free whoever. Again, I'm not an expert. But he ran to his wife, begging him to hide him, begging her to hide him. He didn't want to deal with this battle that he had to go through. Obviously, he ended up doing it. But there's so many stories hidden in religion where these heroes, these people who civilizations are built around, religions are built around, fear was always there. Some of the greatest people ever who have achieved the most amazing things were normal people who are very afraid, just like you. Also me, cringe. I put off public speaking for years, but that was my first public speaking event. I was terrified. But when I did it, I realized, well, it's not as big as scary as I thought. And all those limiting beliefs just poof, just dissipated away. I can actually do this. Right now, your fears, they're valid, they're real, they're not to be dismissed. But you are fueling them. You are allowing them to get fat on your avoidance. The only way to get rid of them is through them. So if those people can be afraid, and I guarantee you've already overcome some fear in your life as well, you've just forgotten, because that's what we do. We'll overcome something and go, wow, this is amazing, and then we'll just go back to where we were and forget, and then we'll convince ourselves we're broken all over again. I guarantee you've already overcome something amazing, but you've convinced yourself I can't do that again. You've just forgotten, you've become unconscious again. But the thing that separates people who live in alignment with their values, have the courage to express themselves on their terms, reach their goals, is not that they are not scared. It's that they have the courage to do it anyway despite the fear existing. That's where your power is. That's the elixir. That's the secret you're looking for. There ain't no secret, right? The only secret is I've got to do it even though I'm scared. So Jeff Thompson said this, your fear is not blocking your life, it is the fuel for it. So Jeff Thompson wrote a play called Fragile, which won a BAFTA. And it was all about his way of cleaning his wound from childhood, where he felt betrayed by the abuse that he went through. And then that followed up with further betrayals by the police who didn't take him seriously, by his own parents who were deeply religious and who denied it happened, who said who was making it all up. Can you imagine the hurt that he must have had? But he wrote a play that told his story through these characters that impacted so many people. And I've heard an interview before where he said this play was first put on, that he won a BAFTA for, and all the people in the audience were like crying tears of joy after, because so many people in that audience had went through what he went through. And seeing the forgiveness, the reconciliation, the letting go of pain, the surrendering to the higher power, how that allowed them to just let go of whatever they were holding on to. So from his grief and his trauma, he created something beautiful that healed literally people in front of his eyes and his audience. Debbie Ford, who I'm big into as well, she also said that. You heal from trauma by turning your pain into a gift for others. If you are able to do that, it wasn't all for nothing. How powerful is that? How to overcome fear, Sam style. I told you those photos will come in handy, right? Sometimes things are shit, aren't they? Things are shit. And I've said before, acceptance, which is the first part of processing fear, doesn't feel good, does it? I think people confuse acceptance with, well, I should be all right with this. No. Accepting things is never, I should be fine with this. That's like trying to force yourself to feel something that you can't ever feel. And again, that creates that self-fulfilling prophecy for people. I can never let go of this. I can never deal with this fear. I can never overcome this thing because I don't feel good about it yet. So I'm going to wait until I feel good. Right, okay, self-fulfilling prophecy, now you feel shit forever. The first part of acceptance is accepting that you might not like something, but you just stop fighting it. Again, in Buddhism, they call suffering, they call pain normal. Pain in life is normal. But suffering is pain plus resistance. So if we don't want to suffer, we'll just let go of the resistance. We'll stop fighting it. We'll stop saying, I wish this didn't happen. I wish I didn't have this fear. I wish I didn't feel this emotion. I wish I didn't have these problems. I wish these things weren't in front of me. You can definitely wish all of that. I wish all of these things as well. But you do have to sit in them and go, I accept that they exist because they do exist. How could there possibly be anything else other than what they are? You can't go back in a time machine and change the things that's happened to you. You can't control someone else around you right now who's maybe making your life harder than it needs to be and control their thoughts like that zombie mushroom I talked about before. You can't do that. You can't force someone to treat you the way you want to be treated. You can't force someone to change. You can't force someone to do anything. Sitting in that and resisting that psychologically every day, ruminating on it, that's where depression and anxiety and suffering lives. So pain is normal, normalize pain. Fear is normal, normalize fear. But suffering is optional. Suffering comes from resistance. So phase 1 of overcoming fear, Sam style, accept it. Number 2, get clear on your mission. Joseph helped you with that today. Your mission about what you should be working towards, it's already written on your pieces of paper. You already know what you want. Joseph mentioned James Clear before as well. I think the best book ever written on goal setting is James Clear's book Atomic Habits. And the whole concept of it is, to make a great book short, dream big, get clear on the bigger picture, and then just through a process of niching down to the next logical step, just create a sequence of steps from the smallest to the biggest. I wrote my book, which Jess has got a copy on our table, right? I wrote my book, funny enough, I started writing it in here, downstairs in the library. I wrote my book by opening the laptop. That's how I started writing the book. I didn't have a chapter ready, I opened the laptop, right? And then step 2 was I opened up Google Document. Then step 3 was I typed one fucking letter, right? Then step 4 was I wrote a sentence. Then step 4 was a paragraph. See what I'm saying? That's your life. That's James Clear's Atomic Habits. We just get really, really clear on the biggest thing, we reverse it down to the smallest thing, and then start from there. We do exactly the same with fear. Step 3, question it. So we accept that the fear is normal. We normalize it. Normal to have it. Then we'll get clear on my mission. Okay, I'm afraid of this, but I don't want to be afraid of this. So how would I want my life to be instead of this thing that I'm currently experiencing? Right, we've got ourselves out of just how I don't want to feel, and we've got some sort of path now, some sort of inner compass around, okay, well, here's how I want my life to look, somewhat like this. Not like that, like this. Okay, now I'm clear. Now I'm a little bit more clear. Right. Question it. Why do I have this fear then? Because I'm going to have to face this, right? I'm aware of it now, but this is here for a reason. Remember, don't dismiss your fear. It's there for a reason. It could literally be feedback from your nervous system of something that you're not aware of that's just letting you know, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure this is the right thing? Have you thought about everything? It's trying to work with you, not against you. So question it. What does it mean? Where did it come from? Is this fear even mine? I've talked before about so many of our fears are not even ours. They're just projected into us by our parents. Or they're even yours. If you go on social media now and scroll for 30 minutes, it'll convince you that the world's ending, that we're all divided and everyone hates each other, and that the world's a terrible place. Is that even your fear? Or is it you've just got lost on social media? It happens. So is the thing you're saying you're afraid of, is it even yours? Question it. Really pick it apart. Why is this here? What's its job? I'm not invalidating you. I'm going to invite you in for a cup of tea. Tell me what you're here for. Talk to it. Communicate with it. And then flip it. Okay, I think Anne said before, instead of why, was it but? Or it was, instead of but, it was because. Great. Another example of it. Flip the switch. Flip the script. What if it does work? What if I fail? Okay, what if I don't? What if people think I'm stupid? What if they don't? What if this doesn't work out for me? Okay, what if it does? That exists just as much as the opposite. They're both outcomes that are possible. Yet, for some reason, we all block ourselves to what could be possible in the positive sense, and we just assume the negative will work. We all do this. So what if I do get what I want? What if it does work out exactly like I thought? What if I get exactly what I came here for? Action alleviates anxiety, brick by brick, okay? The only way to overcome fear is to take an action. The only way to overcome anxiety is to take an action. Again, start small. But you can't do this in your head, unfortunately. You can't deal with fear in your head. You've got to do it. You've got to let your body expose yourself to that thing. You've got to get uncomfortable. You don't build an amazing house in one go. The first brick, it doesn't look like anything in isolation, does it? But however many bricks build a house, I don't know, couple of thousand. That's what builds the beautiful home. It starts off as one tiny brick, looks like nothing by itself, but it's all part of the bigger picture. That's you rebuilding your life. You just pick one tiny small thing that you've been avoiding and go, right, I'm going to start there and see what happens. And you just keep doing that over and over again. So fear doesn't have existence until you walk towards it. It's all in the mind. When you walk towards it, then it's real, and that's when the nervous system really responds. But that's exactly how you're supposed to feel in order to grow. Up until that point, it's just a story, it's a projection, it's a what if. What if I look stupid? What if my clients hate my talk? I don't know. You might tell us in a minute. I'll deal with it. But that little joke there I made, that was what stopped me from actually doing this for years. See my point? So you kind of think your way out of fear. You kind of reason your way out of fear, and you kind of suppress it into disappearance. It all grows from those things. If you try and think your way out of a fear, you're ruminating on it, it grows. If you try and reason with it, try and out-logic it, justify it, it grows. If you suppress it, it definitely grows. The only way out of it is to go through it. And even if you prove it to be real, okay, at least you've got some data now to go, right, well, that thing I was afraid of definitely happened. Right, what can I learn from then? Because every time you fail something, you've just got great data to figure out how you can achieve it next time. So questions to ask your own fear pyramid. We're going to stop for lunch soon, but we'll definitely work on this together one-to-one on your next Zoom calls. Why do I have this fear and what does it mean? So you might not have the pyramid yet, but you might have a list of stuff you've been avoiding that's just come to your mind when I've been speaking to you today. Why do I have this fear? What does it mean? How did I process this fear when it first happened? Because the reason you have that fear is because there's probably something in your past that convinced you it was either really true, or it might be true, or it might happen again. Right? You're not making it up. What action do I need to take to overcome this fear, or to get started with overcoming this fear? Who can I learn from who has already overcome something similar? That's why we're getting rooms like this. It's why we do talks like this. It's why we develop a community. It's why we like listening to inspiring podcasts. It's why we like watching movies where the underdog wins and the hero wins. It's why we love all of that. What could I possibly ask those people? Easiest way and fastest way to get results is to simply just emulate someone else who's already achieved the thing that you've yet to achieve. So, again, you can do this at some point. You don't have to do it right now, but get your list of fears and just order them in that pyramid. Again, your easiest at the bottom, deepest, darkest one at the top. Here's mine. Oh, hang on. We're not ready yet. The caterpillar. I like to finish off with this, right? We all know the caterpillar becomes the butterfly. Do you think if a caterpillar has consciousness, let's pretend it does for a second, it might, we don't know. It's all of this thought is just like, go and make this cocoon and stay in there. Stay in this horrible, hot, sticky, wet, whatever it looks like inside a cocoon, I don't know, and sit there for weeks, and you don't know why, but you've just got to do it. Imagine how terrified it must be. But it cannot become the butterfly, which the butterfly, what? That symbolically represents freedom, right? Literally fly anywhere it wants. Think how terrified the butterfly would be to become, the caterpillar rather, would become the butterfly. If it had little thoughts in its little tiny caterpillar mind, what would be going through its mind? I think everything in its mind would be telling it to avoid it, right? Don't go in the cocoon. It's the unknown. Everything you've known has been outside the cocoon. Just sit on them leaves and just munch them all day long and hope for the best. But in order for it to become the butterfly, it's got to go through this metamorphosis. It's got to go through this stage of discomfort. That's the stage we all need to enter right now if we want to achieve our dreams. We've got to enter the cocoon, which is not going to be nice, it's not going to feel good, but it's what's necessary for you to transform. It's the only way. You can't get to where you want by avoiding what feels uncomfortable. It doesn't work like that. I'm agreeing with you. I think it's shit as well. I wish life was a lot easier than that, but it ain't. Don't shoot the messenger. So I said I was going to be vulnerable and share your mind. So I sat down and went, right, what's actually going on with mine? Okay, so everything comes from my root wound of I didn't feel free to be myself for best part of 2 decades of my life. So all of my fears come directly from that. I can link every fear that I have from that, okay? Right at the top, it's repeating generational trauma. So I have amazing teachers in my parents and grandparents, and I love them dearly. But there's many things that I don't want to repeat. I don't want to be like them in many ways. And they've been the best teachers I've ever had for me to go, I definitely don't want to handle this situation in life like that. But that can be freeing in terms of understanding yourself, but that creates fear, okay? I've mentioned it and joked about on Q&As before, fear of commitment. I've been with Jodie 10 years. She's nudging us in the back in the middle of the night. I'm running out of excuses, man. Has anyone got any? Fear of commitment, and I realise why that is. It's just that fear of responsibility. And it's all linked back to that. What if I repeat that? What if I settle down and start a family and this? What if I become my dad? Oh, shit. And it was all unconscious until very recently. And I'm like, right, okay, this is why I found it so hard. Also, fear of losing independence. Like, I love my hobbies. I love my, I love my little safe space. I like being a little bit messy in my own private environment. I like having all my hobbies and, my kayak laid out in the backyard and my fishing gear all over the house. And if I move in, I can't do any of that, can I? I'm going to have to be tidy. Underneath that, rejection, abandonment, fear of not being good enough. I joked before about, what if my clients don't like my talk? Well, yeah, I would perceive that as a rejection. Even though I can be aware of that, that's still a fear. What if clients leave my program? What if I lose my job? What if I have to go back to working in wherever? What if I have to apply for a job at Asda? What if I lose this freedom that I've set up? So I work very, very hard, but it's not like a normal job. I can kind of do what I want, to be honest. It's great. This is my job. How fantastic is this? I don't want to go and work in Asda across the road. That terrifies me. It keeps me awake at night. Debt spiraling. Everyone can probably imagine that. I've got student loans to pay off. I've got this, I've got that. All of a sudden it starts to go into that. Right, what if I lose my sense of freedom? What if I, move in with Jodie and all of a sudden the mortgage or the rent goes up by double and now I don't have this money? What if I have to get in debt? Oh my God. And all these thoughts are spiraling. This is what's going on in my mind, or has been lately. But again, this all comes from, what if I lose my sense of freedom that I spent so long building? And that's directly related to my root wound. Okay, so I've had to sit here and go, right, what are all the little actions that would represent me challenging those things as not real? Haven't done it yet, but I'm sharing this with you guys to hold me accountable for the future, because that's what I'm going to have to do. If I want to get over these things, I'm going to have to break down these fears that are just what ifs. Look at them, they're all what ifs. That's all they are. So there you go. Right, lunchtime, guys. Thank you very much. I overran there, didn't I? Never mind. Right, lunch has been served. It's already in the corner.